This is an interview with Mr. Ben Fountain Robinson for the Sanford University Oral History Program by Evelyn Lee McCragy at his home on 1524 Edwards Lake Road, Birmingham, Alabama, conducted Saturday, August the 9th, 1986. Could you just tell me a little bit about when you grew up and everything, where you grew up and where you were born?
Well, I was born at Albertville, Alabama, and I was born on October 24, 1912.
How many brothers and sisters did you
I
have?
have 8.
8?
Seven brothers and 1 sister.
7 brothers and 1 sister. Were you the oldest, or?
No, I was third from the youngest.
What were some of the things you did while you were growing up?
Well, we lived on a farm right outside of Albertville. It was just a small farm. My father was a rural letter carrier, but we had a farm too. And when I was about 7 years old, we moved away from the farm and moved into downtown Albertville. And he was still a rural letter carrier. And I had started school in first grade at the Albertville Elementary School. And that, when I was in about third grade, the schoolhouse burned down, and we had to move over to the high school. So we occupied part of the Albertville High School for the rest of my elementary school education. And then I entered Albertville High School. It was known as an agricultural college. It was state funded.
The high school was a college?
No, it's an agricultural high school.
Oh, okay.
But it was state funded.
How many years is elementary school? Was it 6 years then?
It was 6 years and 4 years. No, it was 8 years with 4 years high school. They did go into a junior high program from 6 to 8. 7th and 8th year was a junior high program, and then you had 4 years in high school.
When did you graduate from high school?
It was in 1933.
What did you do after you graduated from high school?
Well, when I was in high school, I played football.
Mm-hmm.
And Howard College, Sanford now. Howard College offered me a scholarship. So I entered Howard College at the old campus over on 2nd Avenue South. Entered in 1935.
What position did you play in high school?
Center.
Center. Did you go straight from high school to
Pardon?
college? Did you?
No, I was out a year. I worked a year. In fact, I think I worked a year and a half because I started to Howard College in January, the January term.
If you started in the January term, were you there the January before the Alabama game, or had the Alabama Howard game just occurred that fall when you entered?
I believe the Alabama Howard game was in 1935, but it was a preseason game for the fall football season. It was like an early football game for fall. I had already been in school for half a year and had spring training in my January. And then I started in the fall and was still a freshman on the freshman team. Back then we had a freshman team and a varsity team. But it was the fall of 35, I believe, that Alabama and Howard played, and it was a tie game, 7-7.
What was so great about that?
Well, Alabama had just gotten back from the Rose Bowl.
Oh,
Back then, they would let anybody in the nation go to the Rose Bowl. That was #1 in the nation. Now they've changed it and they restrict it, but then anybody could go. So Alabama went 3 or 4 times before they changed it. But 1934, Alabama went to the Rose Bowl, and in the next football season, which was 1935, Howard played Alabama a preseason game. We were not in the same league as Alabama. Alabama was in the Southeastern Conference. We was in what they called a Southern Conference.
Alabama was in the Southeastern?
Alabama was in the Southeastern. Had teams like Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Tennessee, Vanderbilt.
Oh, it was
But
a
the
bigger league.
Pardon?
It was a bigger league than it is today. Today it's like just Alabama, Mississippi.
It might have changed some. I don't know exactly how much. But the conference that we was in, they call it the Southern Conference, and we would play teams like Southern, Birmingham Southern, and Mill South.
Mill South?
Yeah, and other colleges that were really smaller than the ones that were in the Southeastern Conference.
Was there was Sanford a good football team back then? Big.
Yes, I've forgotten what our score was. I remember the freshman team that year that I was a freshman. We won all of our games. We didn't play but 4, but we won all 4. Our biggest game that year was with Birmingham Southern, freshman.
Why was it the biggest?
Well, the rest of our games was with high schools.
Oh.
We didn't have any other college freshman games.
I was going through the Crimson, and it seems like Birmingham Southern and Howard had a big rivalry back then.
They did, and it, best I remember, we played every Thanksgiving. And it was a big rivalry, and both colleges had good football teams. But there was an accident happened, and one of the students got killed one year. I don't know, I can't remember the exact particulars of that now, but they stopped playing for several years. And I really don't know when they started back. It might have been after World War II.
Where did you have the Birmingham Southern Howard game this year?
At Legion Field.
Which one's that?
It's the one that we have our football games now. The one out.
Oh, the big one?
Yeah.
Is that old?
Yeah, but it didn't have just bleachers on each side then. They've added to it and put all of this other around it since then.
I didn't know it was that old.
Yeah, it's. I think it started off maybe holding 16,000, something like that.
That was big then, though.
Yeah. But they've expanded Legion Field several times since then.
Who was the president? Do you remember?
I believe it was President Wright, Dr. Wright.
Okay. Oh, the big parade. What was the big parade? I read something about that in there. They had a big parade every year.
Well, we had one before the Birmingham Southern and Howard football game, and they'd have a parade.
Were you in it?
No, I was tied up with the football team, and the football team wasn't in the parade.
They were out there practicing.
Yeah.
What was your mascot? Did you have a mascot?
Yes, ours was a bulldog.
A bulldog. Did you have a live one or a stuffed one?
No, it seemed like we had a live one for some of the time.
Birmingham Southern, I understand, had a panther.
Yes.
Yeah. I heard that one year Howard stole the panther. Around
They
70.
might have. They did a lot of things.
What's some of the things that they did?
Well, they would. One of the colleges catch a student from the other college, maybe and shave his head
Oh gosh.
and shave his hair off.
Did they ever catch you?
No, no, they didn't. But they just do, I guess, what students do.
That's. Where did you stay when you went to Howard?
I stayed. My mother and father moved here, and I stayed at home. They lived in East Lake.
Did they move just so you could go to college? Or?
Well, he had retired, and I don't know whether it's because I wanted to go to college or my brother wanted to go to college too, and we were the only two left at home.
Where did your brother go to college?
He went to business college.
Here in Birmingham?
Yes.
There were some boarding houses and girl dormitories and anything. What were some of them, or where were they?
Now boys' dormitory was right on the campus, and they didn't have a girls' dormitory for a long time, and then they had the location where the East End Hospital was. They had that as the girls' dormitory for a good many years.
It's where East End was?
It's where the East End Hospital was. That's where it started, was in that building, and they expanded that building onto the hospital.
Did y'all have chapel?
Yes.
Where did you have
It was
chapel?
in the main building. We had a main building and two smaller buildings. And the best I remember, we had a main building with a chapel in it, and two smaller buildings where we had our classrooms, mostly. And then the boys' dormitory was on the campus. And then the girls' dormitory was about 2 blocks away.
Oh, where is Underwood Avenue? Is it?
Underwood Avenue is 2nd Avenue. It used to be named Underwood Avenue.
Okay, because I was reading where the dormitories for the girls
Was on Underwood Avenue.
at Underwood Avenue.
Well, they changed the name of Underwood Avenue to 2nd Avenue South. But when it was first laid out, when East Lake was first laid out, 2nd Avenue South was named Underwood Avenue.
Okay, you moved into East Lake, but when the college was there as many houses and everything as there are now? Or was
Well, mostly back then the houses were built close to, really the only transportation they had was the streetcars. They could get several blocks away. But after a while, they started building subdivisions and adding on to it. And, well, where Banks High School is now, around Banks High School is all subdivisions that are 25 years or old or less, maybe.
So, at the time you were going to Howard in the 1930s, 1935, there wasn't that many houses, there wasn't
No.
the grocery store and the...
Well, there's a few grocery stores, but little corner grocery stores.
And you'd have to walk a couple blocks to catch the streetcar?
Well, unless you lived on the streetcar line. Everybody tried to live on the streetcar line.
Where's the streetcar line?
That's the street that carries the streetcar.
So everybody would be bunched up around?
Right, so the streetcar ran down 1st Avenue North. And 2nd Avenue South, or Underwood Avenue. So everybody tried to get located on those streets to where they could catch a streetcar in front of their house.
That makes sense. Did you ride the streetcar every day?
Well, now when I went to school, I walked to school. I was only about 6 blocks from school. But if you come downtown, you'd have to ride the streetcar.
How much was it to ride the streetcar?
Seemed like to me it was 7 cents.
7 cents?
Yeah.
Did you have coins back then that were smaller than pennies?
don't believe so.
Seven seasons. I wish it was just 7 seasons.
A lot of people, you see, the streetcar would run from East Lake to Inslee. And a lot of people on Sunday would just ride the streetcar from East Lake to Inslee just for an outing.
The Sunday drive
Yeah.
on the streetcar. What was H Day?
Well, that was Howard Day, you know.
Oh,
The H was for Howard, and it was just a day that they had a lot of events of it, and some of it was the graduates and alumni would come back and visit, and they'd have luncheons and things. I don't know exactly what all of the events that was carried on, but it was just a day of celebrating Howard.
And today, that must be where we got S Day for Sanford.
It might be.
I was wondering about that. I said, H Day, what is that? They mentioned in the Crimson, which was, the newspaper, that there was a big bonfire that year that the freshmen did. That they had mentioned. Do you remember anything about that? About a bonfire?
Seemed like to me we had a bonfire out on. Now, when I was talking about the buildings a while ago, the main building and the two buildings where we had our classes, back of that was a football field, or where we practiced football, and we also had some games out there. We had a small little seating on each side of the football field. We played some of our games out there too, but most of the games were played at Legion Field. The only game that we played at Legion Field as a freshman was the Birmingham Southern.
That's the
Yeah.
only one that you played.
That's the only one we played at Legion Field.
Now the varsity, though,
The varsity would play Legion Field nearly every game. That was in Birmingham.
they did travel around. Though.
Yeah, they could do similar to what they do now. One year, like Millsap would come to Birmingham, and the next year Howard would go to Millsap.
How long did you go to Sanford? I mean,
2
how
years.
long?
2 years.
2 years? What kind of classes did you take?
Just general education. I wanted to be a football coach.
What did you do after you left?
Well, one summer I found a job. The second year that I was there, and it was a part-time job for Standard Oil Company. And before the summer was over, they had promoted me to a manager of a service station. And best I remember, I think, coaches and school teachers. You see, when you coached, you had to teach school too back in those days. I think they made $65 a month, and I'd already got me a job making $105. And I knew then I should have went back to school, but I wanted the job and wanted the money, and I quit.
Why did
quit
you
school.
want the money and the job? Was there anything special, or
Pardon?
were you dating somebody? Or?
Yes, I was dating your grandmother,
That's what I thought.
and we wanted to get married.
When did you get married?
We got married in 1937.
That was right after you.
That was, I met her while I was still in school.
You had mother in 1938.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so you did need that job.
Yeah.
What kind of class? Okay, you took general education.
Yeah.
Do you remember any specific teachers?
Well, I had Dean Burns.
Was he? What kind of person was he?
He was real dedicated in his work, and what I remember about him most really was in the summertime he'd make trips overseas someplace to visit, and he'd come back to the schoolroom to tell about his trips over there and about his summer vacations and things, but he always said he would yearn to get back to studying of of the textbooks, which we couldn't understand.
he wanted to get back studying, and
Yeah.
y'all didn't understand why he wouldn't study.
Right.
Yeah. What did he teach?
He taught at Howard. You said where?
No, what did he teach?
Oh, he taught English.
Oh, yuck. Did you like English?
Well, I don't know that I had any subject that I liked more than other unless it was math.
Who'd you have for math?
I had, I don't know. I had, we was required to take one foreign language, and I took Spanish. And, I thought I could remember his name, but I can't. The teacher that taught us Spanish, but I can't remember his name now. But he was only out of college a couple of years when he was teaching us.
Seemed like he was on y'all's level.
Yeah, and it just wasn't seemed like he's our same age, almost.
Did you have any special teachers you liked? Or was there one special one?
Well, I had no, not. I don't know one that I'd say that I like any better than the others. They, like teachers are now, they have different characteristics and different features and things, but we kind of looked up to all the teachers. We thought they had accomplished a lot.
To be a teacher?
Yeah.
Did they, and you were going to school and all the teachers were there. Was there any evidence of depression affecting Howard? Did they cut back?
I didn't have any money, but didn't anybody else have any money? It was the deepest part of the Depression, almost. I guess the deepest part of the Depression would probably be 1932 or 3. But I'd grown up without having any money. And so it wasn't all that difficult to go to school without any money, because didn't anybody else have any. And we managed very well without it. We never had any, so we didn't know what it was to have it. It wasn't like having something and somebody taking something away from you. You just never had it. And then when you did get a little money, well, just like the first job I had there, that's the most money I'd ever made in my life.
You go crazy with it.
Well, it's just going through a cycle, and then Roosevelt started some projects and programs that really got us out of the Depression.
And then World War II.
Yeah, and then the war brings on really clears up unemployment and stuff like that.
They mentioned in the Crimson about a certain water fountain. Do you know what they were talking about? They were joking around about a water fountain, how everybody needed water and they couldn't get it but at a certain place.
No, I don't remember.
The water fountain. Well, it seemed like I was reading in the Crimson and they had one water fountain for the whole campus and everybody would stand in line to use this water fountain.
Yeah, they had a water fountain out in it was out on the campus. But I don't remember a whole lot about it. I remember it was out there, and that's where we went to get the water. You didn't have fountains all around the halls and everywhere.
Like you do now?
Yeah.
Where was the cafeteria and the...
It was down across 2nd Avenue from the campus.
You had to go, like, down...
You'd have to go down to 2nd Avenue and then cross 2nd Avenue, and it was in a building. It was rented. So it didn't have enough room at the buildings to have a cafeteria.
Did you like the food?
Yes, it was, well, it's been so long I don't know even really.
nowadays it seems like a lot of people complain about the cafeteria food, so I was just wondering.
I don't remember not liking it, let's put it that way.
What would be the most memorable thing you could think about to say about Howard? Or thing you remember about it?
Well, I was only there 2 years, but I think that me going to Howard College really made me realize that I should have more education. And I'd been out of school, I guess, about 10 years. And I decided I wanted to be an engineer. So I started back to school and studied about 7 more years.
You did that.
But I believe going to Howard College made me realize that I should have an education.
I know it seems to be evidenced a lot in your daughters and your granddaughters.
Yes, but I always that was our goal really, was to have our children get a college degree, and both of them now have a master's degree. And our daughter and your mother is working on a higher degree. I don't know what it'd be.
It's the next one after a master's.
Yeah, some of them call it an AA, and into it you work into a doctorate.
So what put so much emphasis on education for you?
Well, I don't seem to like the most memorable thing. The memorable thing I think about my stay at Howard College was that it taught me in my early life that the value of an education.
It was the atmosphere
and I kept that in mind, and still went ahead and got further education. And I was in school about 6 years. After I'd been out of Howard 7 or 8 years, and I qualified to be a registered professional engineer in Alabama. I'm also registered in the state of Florida, in which the money that I could make after I got registered just more proved to me more that my children and grandchildren should get an education. And that's been my wife and I's goal, really, is to try to assist in getting children educated.
So education is besides just it's good to have an education, it's security
and well, it too, I've read a lot of articles where they research the value of what a high school student can do in a college student and a doctorate. Over a lifetime, the amount of money that you make varies so widely still. And two, you have to have the money to have a comfortable living and to do the things you need to do. So I couldn't, well, like yourself, couldn't impress any more on you than an education and what you're doing. You know, I think you realize that.
So that's what I was trying to get at, because all my life, you and grandmother and mother and daddy, everybody's getting an education.
That's right.
I was just wondering what made you want.
Well,
That's
it's just the difference between the type of living that you want, your level of living. You just can't have the finer things without an education. And now some people, you can read that where a man made a millionaire that didn't go to high school, you know, but those are so far between. So it's just not. You just need to have an education if you want to have a comfortable standard of living.
So you wanted us an education to Well, you wouldn't have to worry about it.
Well, I don't think you ever quit worrying about them, but I wanted you to have an education to where you'd have an opportunity. See, if you don't have an education, you're limited in what you're fixing to do. If you suppose that you didn't finish high school, you'd be limited to possibly minimum wage work. But if you've got an education, that gives you an opportunity. That don't mean that you are going to take full advantage of it, but it does give you an opportunity to. But that's what I wanted my children and grandchildren to have, is an opportunity to compete with people for jobs. And of course, when you get the job, that makes you security.
Howard started this, gave you the opportunity to...
Well, Howard College, I think, from the time that I was there, made me realize what an education meant to people. My father and mother never did urge me to go to school. They didn't. They assisted me if I wanted to try to do something, but I don't think either one of them realized the benefit of a college degree.
What happened? Were you in high school and Howard just came out and saw you play and offered you a scholarship?
Well, when I was in high school, I was captain of the football team in high school.
Okay, this is side 2, and we were talking about high school and how you found out about Howard, or how they found out about you, if you were captain.
I played football in high school. In my last year in high school, we won every game. So there was about 3 or 4, maybe 5 of team members that got scholarships to college. And I think there's only one got a scholarship to Alabama. And the next thing that we knew about at Albertville, because it was in about a 100-mile radius of Birmingham, was Birmingham Southern was a Methodist-sponsored college, and Howard was a Baptist-sponsored college. So first, I was going to go to Birmingham Southern, but when the coach at Birmingham Southern, when I talked to the coach at Birmingham Southern, he had filled up his scholarship, had given them all out. So I come out to Howard, and they had not given all of theirs out, and they gave me one.
So Birmingham Southern and Howard had come out and offered.
Well, what they do, they send a representative around and talk to all of the people, all of the players, and then they invite them to come down for an interview.
And they mentioned that certain scholarships were available.
Yeah.
Were you Methodist?
Yeah, I was a Methodist at that time. I'm a Baptist now, but I was a Methodist at that time.
So your parents were?
My parents were Methodists. But when I married, my wife was Baptist. And your mother wanted to join the Baptist church. And Ben Jr. wanted to join the Baptist church. So my wife was already a Baptist, but all 4 of us were baptized at the same time.
Really?
At 85th Street Baptist Church.
85th Street?
Brother Hester, he finished Howard about that time. He was the pastor at 85th Street.
When you got baptized?
Yeah.
That was after Mother and
now, Brother Hester is still with the Baptist organization, I believe, maybe somewhere in Texas.
And so you, Mother and Beanie and you and Grandmother all got baptized at the same time?
Same time.
When you were in college, did you go, in Crimson they mentioned that Ruhama Baptist Church was the church that most of the people went to. Did you go there, or did Grandmother go there?
No, we didn't. She was going to Woodlawn Baptist, and at that particular time I didn't have a church that I was going to regularly. And after we married and moved to 85th Street and had our children, we went to 85th Street for several years before we all joined it.
Where were you married at?
At Asheville, Alabama.
Why were you married at Asheville?
I don't know.
I mean, you and Grandma both were living in Birmingham, but
Yeah.
you got married in Asheville. Was somebody there that you knew?
No. We just decided to go up and get married.
Did you elope, Granddaddy?
No, not really.
I said, I don't know any of this. I was just asking.
No, not really. We didn't elope, but we just decided to go get married. We didn't have a church wedding or anything like that.
I know all grandmothers felt this seemed to like you, so they must have all been in support of you marrying
Yeah.
her. I noticed that at the funeral the other day. They all wanted to say hi to you. Mother said that they liked you.
Yeah.
Chapel at Howard, did you have to go every day or once a week? Or?
I've forgotten. Seemed like to me it was once a week.
Were you required to go?
Yes.
Your mother was required to go too.
Yeah.
We're required to go. I read in the Crimson, the newspaper, that they had switched from a 6-day schedule to a 5-day schedule or something like that. Like they used to have classes.
On Saturday.
Yeah. I didn't.
I don't know. It seemed like to me we just had classes 5 days, and now we would practice football on Saturday when we didn't have a game, but generally our games were on Saturday.
Yeah.
But we would practice on Saturday during football season.
So you don't remember much about that change in there? I think it may have
No.
been right before you got there. That
It might have been. I don't remember it.
Okay, what was the Bulldog Grill? Do you remember that? The Bulldog Grill?
Yeah, that was it was just a little bitty kind of a hangout where you could buy soft drinks and candy and a few little things.
Did you buy hamburgers?
Yeah, they had hamburgers and really they didn't have much of anything. But it's kind of a little hangout for the kids.
Did you
For the
have?
students, and you'd go down, if you had a nickel, you could go down and drink a soda with the rest of them.
So everybody sat there and see what everybody else
Yeah.
was doing. Where was it at?
It was on the corner of 2nd Avenue and 77th Street,
77th?
77th.
That was on the streetcar line, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was on the car line.
They also mentioned something called Stevens Food. You know what that was? I don't know what that was.
No, I don't.
And the Co-op Duck Inn.
Well, now that was, the Co-op Duck Inn was the same thing that we've just talked about. It just changed names.
Oh, they just changed the name?
Yeah.
Or they used two names for it?
Yeah. But I don't know which one is first now, but I think it was the same location. And it just changed ownerships or something.
What was Sherman Oak?
Sherman Oak,
Yes, sir.
I don't know unless it was, they had big oak trees in the campus.
Yeah, they mentioned the Crimson, like, Mother said it was a big oak tree, and they took a twig and planted it at the new campus. But back then, they seemed to be talking about Sherman Oak like everybody went there and gossiped and stuff.
Well, it was a place that they gathered on the campus under the oak trees. There was several big oak trees.
Were there places that at night you would go and sit on campus?
I don't think so.
Benches or anything?
Sometime, now see, we had a gym. We'd have basketball games in the gym at night sometime. But if they did, I don't remember it.
Do you remember stunt night? Was there a stunt night then?
Yeah, there was stunt nights, but I've forgotten just about. But they were stunt nights.
Now they have what is it called? Step sing. I don't think they had that then, did they?
I don't think so.
Because I took Mother Step sing last year. Okay, let's see. Do you remember Coach Bill or Coach Ray and Bill Bancroft?
Billy Bancroft was a freshman coach when I started. And then he became varsity coach the next year.
Is he the one that was coaching when Alabama tied with?
He was no, he was assistant coach or a freshman coach. He just had two coaches. One was a freshman coach and a varsity coach. And the varsity coach was named Shorty Probst. He was
Shorty what?
Probst. He was about 6'8", and they called him Shorty.
That was the varsity or
As a varsity coach.
varsity?
And he left and went to Southwestern.
Okay, Shorty Probst.
Yeah. He left Howard and went to Southwestern. We used to play Southwestern. It was a college up in Memphis, not Northwestern. Northwestern now is at Evanston, Illinois. This was Southwestern. And he left Howard and went to Southwestern, and then Billy Bancroft was made head coach. But Billy Bancroft, now, Shorty Probst was the coach that gave me my scholarship.
But he left the next year?
He left the next year and went to Southwestern. And Billy Bancroft became head coach.
Okay. And then, who was freshman? Do you know who was freshman coach after that? Billy Bancroft?
No, I've forgotten.
Okay, in the Crimson newspaper, they had two terms, and I didn't know what they meant. I was going to ask you if you knew what they meant. One was terms. One was called rats. They called somebody rats.
Yeah, that was freshman.
They called y'all rats?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have liked that. And Frosh, was that another word?
Frosh.
Frosh? Y'all were that also?
Yeah.
Rats and Frosh. Were you in any kind of fraternity?
Yes, they had several fraternities.
Do you remember which one it was?
Phi Gamma was the one that I pledged to.
Phi Gamma Mu? What's it? Mu?
Phi Gamma, can't even think of it now.
So I looked up in your annual and it had one under it, but they don't write it out in English. They write it out in Greek, and I
Right.
can't read Greek.
It was Phi Gamma. Yes.
Okay. What did you have to go through an initiation?
Yeah, we had initiation.
What did they do?
They had several things, but I've forgotten now what they were. But they had initiation day, and they had several fraternity homes around.
Did you belong? Did Phi Gamma have their own fraternity?
Yeah.
homes? Were the homes run by people or?
Yeah, they were. And some of the students stayed at those homes. They'd have a house mother.
They have a house mother. So at Howard, nobody had money, so the depression didn't really seem to affect.
Well, not having money then would certainly not. You couldn't compare with not having money now.
That's true.
because then didn't any of the students have any money? Some, very few might have had some, but very little. But the majority of the students were just didn't have any money.
Right.
What they do, the football players, the coach would try to get the football players a job in the summertime, and he would got a lot of them a job up at the Goodyear plant in Gadsden, and around at some of the industrial plants here. But it seems that they never did get around to the freshmen to get them a job, so we had to go out and try to find our own.
Did you have a job both summers?
Yeah. The first summer I had a job loading watermelons and working for a produce man that had a produce garden.
Mm-hmm. And then the second summer you worked.
The second summer, when I was working there, is where I met the person that worked for Standard Oil that offered me the job.
Hold on a second. That was a fun. So when you were working.
When I was working the first summer, I met the man who worked for Standard Oil that offered me the job the second summer.
And so you already had a job lined up for the second summer.
Yeah, a part-time job. And then before that summer was over, I had a full-time job.
Were you recommended by the produce man to the other guy?
Yeah.
You were a hard worker.
Well, the produce man, I worked for him a half a day, and he told me to come back and start working regular. And the other job, I worked part-time for about a month, and then they gave me a regular job.
During the year, was your scholarship full?
No, it wasn't full. It was just for the tuition.
Just the tuition? So you had to buy your books?
Yeah, you had to buy your books.
Did you have a job during the year?
Mm-hmm.
How'd you buy your book?
Well, sometime you'd meet another student that had a book, and you all would share the book. And then my father would try to buy me one or two books. But I took some classes without a book.
Was it all right? I mean,
well,
it's hard.
I got by them, but you need the books. But sometimes you couldn't get the books, you couldn't get the money to buy them. And the scholarship didn't furnish them.
Did the coaches help you out studying?
Well, the coaches would try to get you a job.
Even during the year, or just?
Well, no. Really, you can't practice football and work and go to school. I mean, you can't do all three of those. But when during the summers, when they try to get you a job, and then you could save that money to last you through the next year.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. And you'd already worked a year before you went to Howard.
Yeah.
So you had some money saved up.
I didn't save a whole lot, but I had some money.
Did the coaches have any tutors or anybody to help y'all study?
No.
Didn't have any of that?
No.
So you just were on your own to get those
Right.
classes. Was football really emphasized?
Well, back then, football was a whole lot different than it is now. They had to finance the athletic program through the money from the college. You didn't take in enough money at the game to even pay for the uniforms, I don't believe. But back then you didn't have many people going to the games, and then the cost for the ticket was very low. So the expense for your athletic department would have to come out of the general budget, most of it, rather than from the ticket sales. After a while, when you start getting bigger crowds to ball games, then it was different. But first, they just did have enough money to buy the uniforms.
Didn't have much more. Where'd they get? Do you know where they got the scholarship money?
Well, what they would do, see, the scholarship money really was not out-of-pocket money. You just didn't pay for the tuition.
Oh.
You know, you just didn't pay. What they do, they give you a scholarship, but it was just for your tuition.
And really, they weren't.
Right. Now, they did have some football players that were on a full scholarship that had their dormitory room paid for.
So, the tuition back then didn't pay all the teacher's salary. I mean, they weren't paying any extra money by giving you a scholarship.
Well, they didn't take any. See, if I hadn't gone to college, I wouldn't have paid any tuition, but I did go to college and didn't pay any tuition, so the out-of-pocket money for the school was the same, but the only thing to do, if you had too many of those, then you'd have to hire extra teachers, you know.
So they made sure they didn't
Right.
get too many. See, nowadays, whoever they give a scholarship, they have to pay the teacher that much money, I believe.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with it.
I'm not either. But today they act like a scholarship's really a lot of money. That makes sense.
Well,
Whether you'd gone
see,
there or not, they wouldn't have any. You wouldn't have been paying them any
Yeah.
money.
Right. So it was. See, they were sponsored by the churches. See, Howard was sponsored by the Baptist Church, and Southern was sponsored by the Methodist churches. So that's where they actually would get their money. And then too, after people graduated from Howard and Southern, then when they become alumni, they would donate money.
And I understand that most of the people that graduated from Howard were employed. That they had a good tradition of higher education, passing tests. They had 2 Rhodes Scholars. Did that affect you? I mean, was that emphasized?
No,
the way
they had.
talked about it?
When I was in school, the most, I guess if you'd call it a person with the most notoriety was Gail Jackson.
Was that the actress?
Yes. Her name was Gail Fitzpatrick, but she was Gail Jackson Patrick, Gail Patrick, in Hollywood, and she was an actress and then became a producer. She produced Perry Mason.
Gail Patrick produced Perry Mason?
Yeah. But she was in school the same time I was.
Was she really?
Yeah.
And she achieved, I mean, Howard really liked that. I mean, because they'd always say, here's alumni that are...
Right. But when she was in school, her name was Gail Fitzpatrick, and she changed it to Gail Patrick.
And that was the one you remember the most?
Well, that was the one that was most widely known after I got out of school, coming through. But they was, well, you look through the information that you get from from Sanford now. You can look back and you can see people that have really made good their lives, you know, contributed a lot to the communities where they worked.
And you think Howard, that was a good beginning for them?
Yes, it was. And however, Birmingham Southern had the same type, or the same kind of, the same reputation, or the same as Howard. They were both outstanding schools, and Birmingham should be proud of both of them.
I know that even today you support Sanford, which is called Sanford now, and that a lot of your children have gone there and everything. And did you support this? I mean, you wanted them to go?
Oh yeah.
Why?
Wanted to go to Howard, just Sanford. Well, I just thought it was a good school. Well, University of Alabama has done a wonderful job here in Birmingham, but I still think the environment it is different at Howard and Sanford and Southern than it is at UAB. I've taken some courses at UAB, and I've been a guest speaker over at Sanford to some of the classes. But to me, the campus environment is different at Sanford than it is at UAB.
How's it different?
Well, I don't know unless you would just take the setting, and it just seems to me that it's a different environment.
Do people seem more friendly, or?
Well, I don't know that I could answer that. You know, I've been around both campuses, and too, UAB has contributed a whole lot to the Birmingham area. UAB Birmingham, and a lot of people have got an education that could not have gotten it. And at one time they couldn't get the night classes and things at Howard or Southern. But now Sanford and Southern are offering those night classes. But UAB has filled a spot for Birmingham area, and so has Sanford and Southern. But I think Birmingham as a whole should be proud of all three of them. But my preference, of course, is going to be Sanford.
Before we wrap this up, in the newspaper, there was one other thing I read I wanted to ask you about. They called it the Battle of the Marne. Do you know what that was? I don't know what it was. They said each year they have the Battle of the Marne.
And I don't know either.
Okay, I didn't know what it was. They mentioned it in the print. So,
yeah.
Hey, if there was anything else, do you have anything to say or anything else you'd like to add before we?
Not that I think of. Even Marie, I am glad that I did have 2 years at Howard. I think that helped mold the way my life has been, and I'll always be grateful for that. And I'll always be grateful for the scholarship they gave me.
If you hadn't gone to Howard, do you think you would have followed through in your education?
Probably not, because I didn't have really. At the time I entered Howard, I thought at the time that I should have more education, and I thought that I wanted to be a football coach, and that was the best way to accomplish it. But I got more than that out of going to Howard. It made me realize more, just the 2 years I was there, that I really needed more education. And I went ahead and got it. But I think Howard had a lot to do with me choosing my career. Although Howard didn't have a degree in engineering, but that's finally what I wanted to be, was an engineer.
And since you feel like Howard led you into following your education?
Well, they made me realize, really, I think, what an education would mean to you. And I started just about as soon as I could start. After I married, as soon as I could go back to school, I did. You got certain obligations after you get married that you have to handle.
Yeah, children.
Right.
And a wife. Did you go back to school full time after you got married?
No, I worked and went part time. It took me nearly 7 more years.
Grandmother mentioned that you used to fly to places and go to school.
What I did in my work, I had to have special training in certain fields. So I went to Northwestern University at Evanston, Illinois. I went to the University of Louisville, and then I went twice to Northwestern University, and those were special courses in my field of engineering.
And you went to Northwestern and Louisville.
University of Louisville.
Did you go to UAB? No, there wasn't a UAB.
Well, there was a UAB, but it didn't give an engineering degree. I took some subjects at UAB, and I took some at Auburn, their extension here in Bessemer. And I finally got all of those together with the registration, Alabama Registration Board, the one that qualifies you for a registered professional engineer.
Mm-hmm.
I went before them and asked them how could I complete my studies to where they'd admit me to an examination. See, the engineer's examination is kind of like a bar examination in a lawyer. You can get a degree, but you still have to pass the bar. And in engineering, you get your degree, but you still have to pass a 2-day examination in Montgomery. So I went before the board and told them what I had and asked them what I needed, and they said that I could get the rest of my subjects from the International Correspondence School in Stratton, Pennsylvania.
International
Correspondence School in Stratton, Pennsylvania.
And so they told you could get it from there?
And I took a lot of my engineering classes from there. So when I passed all of that, I went back before them.
That was a timer on the stove. So you got the rest of the courses from the International Correspondence School?
In Stratton, Pennsylvania. And I carried them back to the Board of Registration in Montgomery, and they admitted me to the examination. And I passed the 2-day examination and become a registered professional engineer in the state of Alabama. And then I applied to be a registered engineer in the state of Florida, and I passed that. And I'm registered in 2 states, in Alabama and Florida.
And it took you almost 8 years?
It took me almost 8 years just to get qualified to go into the examination room.
So you feel like Howard is what led you to all this education?
I think that they had a part in making me realize that I needed more education. But since I've become an engineer, I have earned more money. I have a higher standard of living, and I was more able